Hey, everybody. This is Jordan McConnell with the Crohn's Veteran Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I am joined by a very special guest hailing from Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada, Darren Steinke. How you doing, man?
I'm absolutely fantastic, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. The pleasure is all mine. I've been looking forward to this interview. Really excited. May is, I believe, Crohn's Colitis, Awareness Month, and so,
Absolutely.
so the more we can do to kind of, bring awareness, internationally, the better. So again, thank you so much.
You're
Um,
very welcome.
so cool. So first off, before we get into your IBD story, who's Darren? What are you doing up there, man?
Absolutely. Well, originally I'm from British Columbia, where it's a lot warmer. I spent some time in the Kootenays. That's where I was born, and then I lived on Vancouver Island for about 10 years. That's where I went to high school and university, and my parents and my siblings lived there. And in 2000, the oil boom was going good in Alberta, and I had an opportunity to move to Grand Prairie. I was going to move here for just a couple of months, maybe a year, and then head back to the ocean. And 22 years later,
Wow.
and 3 kids later, I haven't left. It's been the city is a young city, almost 100,000 people. It's growing very quickly. Can be a little bit conservative at times, but there's a lot of opportunity here. And a great comparison I always use is back home. Somebody at Tim Hortons serving coffee could make $7-8 an hour. In Grand Prairie, they're making $16, $17, $18, $20 an hour.
Wow.
Everything just pays more. So the financial opportunities here and to raise a family and be able to do things with them is amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, just a quick side of that. So you're saying people get paid well for say like a coffee barista or whatever, but how's the actual local cost of living otherwise? Because Canada is kind of known for
Absolutely. And it can be expensive here, kind of depending, right? So, for example, my mom's in Nanaimo right now. She's getting ready to retire. She wants to move to the Okanagan, Kelowna, Penticton, on the lake there. And the housing market on Vancouver Island is crazy. $600,000 house are selling for $1.2, $1.3 million sight unseen. In Grand Prairie, we don't have that issue. The housing pricing is pretty good, but rent is, I'm living in a 5-bedroom house right now, and I pay $2,500 a month rent. It's a lot of money. Vehicles cost a lot of money. Gas, like everywhere, costs a lot of money. But for everything else, the cost of living isn't too bad. Maybe a little bit on the higher end, but in line with the rest of the country and how inflation's playing out. But it's not too bad.
Interesting. So what is something, what is something, I guess, for the audience, like that, if you're to visit, if someone was to visit there for fun, what could they do? What's that area known for?
Well, Grand Prairie is in northern Alberta, so our winter starts in September. We usually have snow by Halloween. And it lasts, well, it tried snowing yesterday and it's May. But we go from plus 15 to -3 usually in May. And then near the end of May, summer kicks in. But our winters are -30, -40 degrees Celsius, and we get a lot of snow. So the downside of that is we're in the flatlands. You can see for miles and miles. There's no mountains up here unless you drive for a couple of hours. So the skiing isn't great. It's more like skiing on a hill compared to the Kootenays, where we had amazing ski resorts. But we have the largest softball community in North America in Grand Prairie. So softball is a big sport here, lots of golf, lots of great golfing, a lot of walking and hiking and camping up here. We're 4 hours away from Edmonton, which is our major city,
Okay.
closest city to us. So we don't have the huge malls. We don't have the huge shopping centers and amusement parks. But there's a lot of family orientated things to do here. And then in the winter, if you're not curling or cross country skiing, you're huddled inside your house trying to stay warm until the
Gotcha.
temperature goes up a bit.
Well, I spent 14 years in the state of Nebraska,
Yeah,
and it's no joke. It's cold, cold. Like I was there, so it's kind of. I was listening to you say, about winter and stuff, and yeah, it can snow from October to April. And I think,
yeah,
and I think, and it's snowing maybe the first day or two of May is not unheard of either, right?
no,
And it's and the coldest it's ever been there. Like actually, I've been in Las Vegas about a year, a little over a year, and so like last February, before we moved, it was like -21 Fahrenheit. So I don't know what that works out to be to Celsius, but it's still pretty gnarly. So it's still pretty cold.
absolutely. I was amazed when, if I talk to friends of mine in the States or on the West Coast, and they, I'll say, hey, I'll give you a call. I just have to plug in my truck. And they don't know what that means. They're like, is it an electric truck? Is it a Tesla? No. We have to plug our vehicles in at night so we can start them in the morning because it's cold. They don't understand that. They've never seen that, which I think it's kind of cute, but.
I will. Well, I'm moving on a little bit. I saw you on LinkedIn, right? And so, and I saw, this, huge scar in your stomach and stuff. And you're kind of saying, all the struggles with, IBD and so, so if you could do me a big favor and, run me through, your personal journey with IBD for, for the folks listening.
Absolutely. So in 2013, I was 33 years old, and I started getting symptoms, bloating after I ate, and a sharp pain in my abdominal section. And like most guys my age, it's a stomach ache or it's a bug. It'll go away on its own, but it never quite resolved. And in Grand Prairie, we have an amazing internal medicine IBD division and a renowned doctor across the country. But I didn't know what internal medicine was. I didn't know what IBD was. It ran in my family, but you hear Crohn's disease and you think, no, okay, it's something to do with their eating. So I never gave it much thought.
Right.
But the pain would get to a point where I would stop eating. If it was supper time, I was hungry, I would not eat because I didn't want to lay on the couch in pain afterwards. So I started losing weight, and I don't have a whole lot of weight to begin with. I'm not a huge guy with a lot of extra weight. So I finally went to the doctor, and they referred me to the internal medicine specialist. Her name's Dr. Westra. And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. I can almost guarantee that. She did a colonoscopy and said, you know what, there's some scarring on your intestines, and you have aggressive Crohn's disease.
Okay.
So she gave me some books to read, and we started the regimen that most people with IBD start. You start small with steroids, oral steroids, and Pentasa, and you go through the whole list to see if there's any alleviation. Nothing was working for me, and I ended up on azathioprine, otherwise known as Imuran.
Okay.
I have a cousin who also has Crohn's disease. He's the same age, and he's been taking Imuran for years and has had no symptoms. So we thought, oh, this is great. The symptoms started to alleviate a little bit. And then late 2013, I went for a nice steak dinner, and I went home, and I had to call 911 because I developed a blockage, and the pain, like I couldn't stand up. I couldn't stand up. I was having a shower, collapsed in the shower, and I had to crawl my way to my phone in my bedroom. I called my parents, and my dad said, "Why are you calling us?" So he goes, "So it's call 911, like, because I live by myself." So my other phone, I'm on the one phone with my parents, the other phone with 911. And the paramedics arrived, and I was carted off to the hospital, and they gave me some morphine, no effect. It ended up having to be some fentanyl to actually take the pain away. And I had a abdominal X-ray and a CT, and they said, you have a blockage, and we're going to have to operate. I'd never had a major operation before, and I was quite scared. I didn't know kind of what was going on. I still didn't really grasp the disease that I had. I was a little bit in denial. You know, I knew I was taking a lot of pills, and I knew I wasn't feeling very good, but I didn't think I had this life-altering disease. I wasn't willing to accept that. So I go in the hospital, I'm admitted, and a surgeon comes in and kind of explains what they're going to do. And this is why I really like sharing my story, because a lot of people who get diagnosed with IBD, whether it's colitis or Crohn's, most of them at some point are going to have to face a surgery. And you're given expectations to that surgery, and it's always the rosy, everything is going to be great, piece of cake, we do thousands of these, in and out. And the surgeon explained to me, you know, we're going to do it laparoscopically. You're going to have very minimal scarring in the hospital for 3 days. We're just going to take a little chunk of your intestine out. 2-3 weeks, you'll be back to normal. So I had the surgery, and I woke up sometime late in the afternoon. I had a friend there, so I wasn't by myself. And you know, after surgery, you want to go to the bathroom. That's the biggest key that it works, and they're really pushing. But I did notice when I first woke up, I didn't have 2 or 3 little scars. I had one big scar, and that took me by surprise. And you know, you have staples, you're in a lot of pain, you're on a morphine pump. So the surgeon came in and he explained, you know, we need you to go to the bathroom, but you had a lot more diseased intestine than we thought. Your appendix, you know, is wrapped around your appendix, so we had to take that out as well. And we had to take your ileum out. Now, I didn't know what an ileum was, and he just basically said, you know, you're not going to have any foreign bowel movements from here on out, but you're going to feel better. And once you go to the bathroom, everything's going to be great.
That is, I can tell you before you almost finish that, because I mean, if you listen to my show at all, you know that that's my experience.
Yeah.
Right? You know, I've had my appendix taken out. I've had my ileum taken out. I've had some of my colon taken out. And, you know, and if your experience is anything like mine, it is that rosy, my friend.
They really jack you up. And even after then, you know, I was on my way to the bathroom. I thought I was going to go. And then I had this like black ooze dripping down my leg, puddling on the floor. And I've never seen that before. I didn't know what it meant. So I'm screaming for a nurse. And then, of course, you're embarrassed because you pooped yourself.
Right.
But it didn't look like anything I'd seen. And she saw that and wiped it up and said, "Oh, Darren, it's okay. It's okay." And this isn't to rip on the staff at the Grand Prairie Hospital in any way, but for the next 2 to 3 hours, I was in pain. I was sweating, I was pale, and my friend would go get a nurse, and a nurse would come in and say, "Hey, it's probably just some gas pain, you're okay." In reality, my intestinal connection had broken completely off. So I was in the process of going septic. I was in sepsis. And after about an hour, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. That's how much the pain was. I was maxing out my morphine pump, nothing. I can't explain the pain. But I was screaming at the top of my lungs, and the nurse would come in and say, "Darren, you have to be quiet. You're disturbing other patients." And I said, "I can't." So finally, my friend, he went to the nurse's desk and he started yelling and said, "You guys have to get a doctor. He is white like a ghost. His eyes are rolling back in his head." So finally the surgeon came back and he looked at me for 5 seconds, and I don't remember any of this, but I was losing consciousness at this point. But I was wheeled out of my room within 30 seconds on the way to OR for emergency surgery. I had another emergency resection. And when I woke up this time around, now things are a little bit different. I'm in the same room. I have a tube stuck down my nose, a gastral tube. I have a large scar again that's been restapled and bandaged. But I have this stoma now. I didn't even know what a stoma was. If somebody asked me before that what a stoma was, I would have thought it was a mushroom. No idea. And a nurse came in and explained, "Hey, you have an ileostomy. It's temporary, but it's going to be doing the work that your intestines do so that they can heal, because we've reattached them." Well, I developed, while I'm processing this, and this is the second reason I like explaining my story, is people with Crohn's and colitis don't have good surgeries. And it's not because the doctors are bad or the surgeons are bad. It's because we have an immune system that is so depleted that a healthy person with a healthy immune system can take the punishment your body takes from surgery and heal itself, where we really struggle to do that. So my body was struggling healing itself. So I developed post-op infection. I had post-op infection in my incision. I had post-op fistulas that had developed on my back. And, but again, rosy glasses, everything's going to be okay. So they sent me home. I was back in ER 4 days later because my incision had opened up. And so I spent another 3 weeks in the hospital fighting the infections. I had 2 pigtail drains inserted into my groin for the fistulas. They were connected to bags strapped to my ankles, collecting whatever they were collecting. I had an ileostomy, and I had a incision, and where it had opened up at the bottom was an open wound. So every day I had to go to the hospital, and I had to get dressing shoved into it, and then they left it open. I had a vacuum on it for a period of time, but you're dealing with all this and Crohn's, and your life isn't normal. It was not a quick in and out. And I remember laying in bed one night. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. My ileostomy bag had burst. And this is where the mental health aspect comes in. If you want to talk about humiliation, even though I was by myself, I'm laying in my bed. It's 2 in the morning, covered in feces. I'm trying to keep it from getting into my open wound. And you lay there and you quit, because you say, I have 2 kids, I have a job, you're trying to live a normal life, and you're laying in your bed covered in feces, and you're trying to put your ileostomy bag back on and put a new seal on, which is a process in on itself. You're trying to bury this open wound and it's an incision that's still healing. Plus you have 2 drains in your groin. Getting out of bed sometimes it'd take me, I'd lay in bed in the morning and it'd take me 2 hours to get out. Because I just didn't, everything was different. And I was promised or told over and over that everything would be just fine, and it wasn't. And I didn't have a resource to go to. And so I started getting very, very depressed. And, but I still tried to do things that were important. My dad was my best friend, my biggest fan, and he was sick. He had diabetes with cardiovascular disease. He had quadruple bypass surgery and a pacemaker, and he had issues with circulation. He was in a lot of pain, but he loved hockey. He loved the Vancouver Canucks. He lived in Nanaimo on the island, Vancouver Island. So I got tickets to the Heritage Classic in Vancouver for him. Vancouver was playing Ottawa, and I flew there, and we got to spend the weekend watching the hockey game. But it was hard because I had this ileostomy bag. I just discovered the belt that you can get with it, so that it doesn't hang down and pull on your stoma. But even in Vancouver, we were in a hotel, and I'd have to get in the car. I'd have to drive to the hospital in Vancouver so they could take the dressing out of my open wound and put a new dressing in. So I tried to do normal things, but it's not normal. And you put on a brave face, and you see somebody with Crohn's, you see somebody who's had a surgery, and they look like they're doing fine, and they're putting on this brave face, but underneath it sucked. It was the worst thing I've had some adversity. I had West Nile virus when I was 16. I had encephalitis. I had a seizure and went into a coma. I spent months at the Vancouver Children's Hospital. I lost my 23-year-old sister in 2009. I lost my dad in 2015. I've had a divorce. I've lost my house. I had to fight for my kids. I've had adversity. It was the worst thing I'd gone through in my life. Now, after 6 months of having this stoma and ileostomy bag, and I went back so they could reverse it. And they figured, okay, it's been 6 months, your intestines have healed. We're going to take down your ileostomy, reconnect your intestine. Of course, they still have to open up that big incision again. So I went in the hospital, and the surgery was good. The connection was good. I went to the bathroom, ileostomy was gone. But of course, our immune systems are not that great. So I had post-op infection again. So instead of a 5-day hospital stay, it was a 26-day hospital stay. The Olympics, which at that time was Sochi, Russia, started and ended while I was in the hospital. I remember actually, as because I couldn't sleep. I was really struggling with the morphine, so I couldn't sleep. I got insomnia, but I got to watch the Olympics live because they were on during the night. And then I'd try to sleep during the day, but I developed fistulas again. I needed pigtail drains again. And I got depressed again. 15 days in the hospital, you just get depressed. And having to insert drains into your groin for a guy is depressing. And I was frustrated that I couldn't seem to get over the hump. And this was supposed to be, you know, my stoma, who I'd named Arthur, by the way. I developed a relationship with him. That was the only way I remained sane or accepted the fact that I had a stoma. And I tell you, I appreciate the men and women that live with a stoma indefinitely. It was hard. It was really hard, but I was just happy. I didn't miss them. I was happy it was gone, but I couldn't go home. And there's a picture of me in a hospital gown, and I'm walking in the hospital. I did a lot of walking, but I was always hooked up to a catheter, always hooked up to an IV with the pain meds and the antibiotics. And it was a train. And of course I smoked back then. I quit in 2016. Great.
Bravo.
But back then I smoked. So of course I'm trying to get outside
Right,
where it's
right.
cold. But I have this picture and I'm walking, and my youngest daughter's mom sent me a picture, and of my daughter Brooke, and she had her house coat on, and she had this toy that looked like a IV stand. So she sent me this picture, and my daughter, she must have been 4.5 years old. She had this she had a house coat on, and little slippers like I was wearing, and she had this toy of hers. It belonged to her kitchen, I think, but it was tall and it had a big white, it looked like an IV stand, and she was pushing it around the living room. And she said, "I'm just being like Dad." And because that's how they saw me, you know, pushing around in a hospital gown, pushing around this IV. So it was depressing, but after 3.5 weeks, I finally got to go home, and I started taking my Crohn's disease seriously. But I felt better. I was eating better. The fatigue was gone, and I started working out. I started tanning because it made me feel really good, and got into softball, got into golf, got into curling, all the things I really wanted to do, I got into. And I was really, I think I was on Amiran for a bit, but I was feeling really good. And I got just about 6.5, 7 years of symptom-free life. But with Crohn's or colitis or IBD, you know, little things can turn into big things, and victories can turn into defeats. And I started on biologicals in 2019. I started Remicade. But of course, right around the same time, I lost my job. The economy started going down. There's a big downturn in the economy. And I went into a bit of a depression again. And of course, I couldn't afford the Remicade, so I just dropped it. I just went off of it. And if I was still able to be on that Remicade, I could have prevented my last surgery. I really believe that. But because I got off of it, come 2020, I started getting some more symptoms, the bloating, the fatigue and lethargy feeling. I knew something was going on. But what's really neat in Grand Prairie and Dr. Westra is in Canada, there's 2 ultrasound machines specifically made for IBD.
Oh, wow. That's
And they're just like an ultrasound machine, but they're a little bit more sensitive. They work a little bit differently, and they allow you to avoid the colonoscopy. They can get actually a really good heat map and picture of your intestinal tract. And so I started going for a few of those, and then a few colonoscopies. And they determined, you know, your it is so aggressive that we want you to get back on the Remicade, get back on the biological. I started taking Julio, which was an alt version of Remicade.
Okay.
Same thing, a little bit cheaper, and it was a self-injected instead of the IV. But we're going to get you to take this for 6 months just to see if we can get the inflammation down a little bit, but we are going to have to operate and take this, another section of intestine out. This created a lot of anxiety for me on top of the 2 years of COVID and the anxiety that comes with that, and your kids. You know, we all got COVID, the kids got it, we got it. And we're all, you know, we're lucky enough to get on Omicron, and we're all vaccinated. So we made out okay, but there's anxiety that comes with it, and especially because we're immunocompromised. But I'm, you know, I don't think I have PTSD, and I don't say that. I say that because I've seen PTSD. You know, I have a twin brother, fraternal twin brother. He's a lot taller and a lot bigger than me, and has red hair and blue eyes.
It's crazy you say that, because I have a fraternal brother, and you know, and I'm 5'8", and he's like 5'11", and he's like 50 pounds bigger than me. Like,
Oh yeah,
the exact same
right?
thing.
Yeah, we got ripped off, Jordan. Somehow. I like to think I got the intelligence and the looks, and he just ate in there. But
that's what
he beat me
I
up
always
if I
say.
said
Like,
that.
you know, like he was.
I never say that to his face, so. But my brother was a firefighter in a town a couple hours away, just north of Edmonton. And you know, one night, Christmas Eve, he was responding to a call several years ago, and he was responding to a house fire, and it was about 4 a.m, and this SUV didn't notice his lights and sirens and pulled into an intersection, and he hit her with a tanker truck, loaded, T-boned her. And of course, as a firefighter, he's also an EMR, so he's trying to revive her. He can't. She dies in his arms, and she was 8 months pregnant.
That's terrible.
And she, you know, he lost his job. He was married with 4 kids. That ended in divorce. He went into a huge depression, took him years to get out of. And he struggles with PTSD. And I always thought, you know what, I've had it bad. And my experiences with surgery were bad, but they weren't that bad. And so I never thought I had PTSD until I went to a psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist. And they said, no, you have PTSD. Your previous experiences with your surgeries has created your anxiety. And even though you're symptom free all these years from your IBD, you're still dealing with it because it's caused a mental health issue for you. And I was just in denial for so long, because I said, mentally, I'm strong. You know, my sister passed away, I was a rock. My dad passed away, I was a rock. And I said, no, I'm too strong mentally for that. And it took me a long time to accept the fact that, no, I'm not immune to that. And I have mental health issues that I have to address. So leading up to this surgery was a process for me. I was given Ativan, and you know, I talked to my mom every night. Every single night I talked to my mom without fail. And that came from, she used to talk to my sister every night. So I filled that in when my sister passed away. And then I talked to my dad every night for years and years and years. And then when he passed away, she filled that in. So we just talk. And you got to be positive. This is going to go good. You're in a better shape. You've been on your biologicals. You're good. And but it was still very, driving to the hospital on the morning of April 21st was a tough drive. I'd taken a lot of Ativan because I was freaking out. I was freaking out going into the hospital. And, you know, we just had a brand new hospital that opened up last September, $1 billion health center with a cancer clinic and a learning academy. And every room is private and every room has a view, and beautiful building, lots of light. But I was petrified of going in there. And I even asked, I said, I don't want to know that I'm going into the OR. Like, put me out before then, or give me a cocktail so I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And of course, the nurse couldn't get an IV. She said, well, the anesthesiologist will put the IV in the OR. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Luckily for me, the anesthesiologist was the husband of my Crohn's doctor, Dr. Westra. So I felt good about that. And my surgeon was a new surgeon. He hadn't operated on me, but my previous surgeries, I'd never met my surgeon before the surgery. This surgeon that I had, he attended every appointment I had with my Crohn's doctor. He was there explaining it. He said, you know, I know you're anxious, but I'm going to use a different technique to heal up your intestine. I'm going to quadruple stitch it. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure this works and there's no leaks and you're good. So that made me feel a little bit better. I knew him. I felt like I had a relationship with him and I started to trust him. But I still remember going into the OR and, you know, transferring to the cold, flat bed. And I had anxiety, but the anesthesiologist recognized that and he put me to sleep pretty quickly. I don't remember counting down. But I woke up to some similar feelings. The staples. This time I had an 8.5-inch incision with 25 staples.
Wow.
I remembered that, but the morphine pump was gone. They don't do morphine pumps anymore now. They just do straight injections of hydromorph, which is a synthetic morphine, 10 times more potent.
Now, did that actually work for you?
It worked, but I wasn't a big fan of it because I got really high and they had to push Gravol through my IV before they gave it to me, or else I got the really nauseous feeling. And to the point that I asked to switch to Tramacet orally, probably a lot sooner than I normally would have with normal morphine. Because it was great at night when I was ready to go to sleep, but to get it at 10 in the morning, it didn't make me feel very, very good. But I didn't have a nasal tube or NRG tube. I didn't have a stoma. I looked right away for that. And that open wound that I got so many years ago that was like a crater in my stomach, and my kids called my second belly button. He had sewn that up straight. And he came to see me and he said, everything looked good. They took about this much, about 4.5, 5 inches of intestine. He said the surgery was 2.5 hours and he was really happy. But of course, I'm laying in bed and I'm preparing for the worst. This is when the post-op infection happens, or the leak, or the sepsis. But I knew I just needed to go to the bathroom. And once I went to the bathroom, I'd feel good. I'd know that the connection held. And it took a bit, but finally I called my common law wife that night. She'd come and visit during the day, but I was pretty drowsy. But I called her at night and I said, I pooped. And then the next day I went to the bathroom and then I didn't go to the bathroom all day. So I said, oh, here we go. Well, I went to the bathroom that night, and ever since I've been going to the bathroom normally to great joy.
Wow.
Every day I did learn something from my last visits. I got out of bed 4.5 hours after coming conscious. And I went for, well, I only walked to the door and back, but my goal was to walk as much as possible, as soon as possible. And that night I was walking, I had surgery at 7 in the morning. That night I was walking around the hospital. But they took my catheter out right away. They took my IV. I just had a portal on my arm. I wasn't connected to anything, which were completely different than my last visits. And so I was walking free. I didn't have to push anything. I was very sore and tender, but I went in on a Thursday and I was discharged on Monday at noon. And that was new. That was a new experience for me. I'd never, I wasn't expecting to stay that short, but they said there was no signs of infections. The blood work showed no signs of infections. A couple of days ago, I had my staples taken out. And of course, I always look, I can't look at my incision until it's completely healed. So I have a bandage over it all the time. And steri strips because I'm paranoid and I have PTSD and I just keep thinking about it, opening it up, opening. But I look at my stomach and I'm like, is that distended? Is there infection there? Is it still kind of sore? And I'm like, it's sore. Maybe it's infected. And, my wife says, Darren, you just had an 8.5-inch hole put in your body 2 weeks ago. Your abdominal wall was sliced open and your abdominal wall is all muscle. And it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for that to fully heal. But I forget that because I spent so long in the hospital in my previous days. My staples came out while I was still admitted. This was the first time I actually went to the hospital from work and got my staples removed. But I took a week off and I went back to work. Luckily for me, I work in an office. I work at a desk. I don't have to lift anything heavy. Of course, we're moving at the end of this month, which is going to be interesting, but just to another house in Grand Prairie. But I feel really good. The PTSD is still there. The anxiety is still there. Infection can always come at any time. Probably 2 weeks from now, I'll feel a lot better, or when I can start seeing some scarring. But today, for example, I feel better than yesterday, and today's the best I've felt. I resume my Julio biological next week. I'm starting up my diet a little bit more. And I feel good. This is the best experience I've had at the hospital.
I'm really glad to hear that, man. I mean, that makes me happy to hear somebody, actually, not living in misery type thing.
Well, and I think it's really important that, I've talked a lot about IBD and the stigma of it and how it's there's no ribbons for IBD. Having a special day or a special week or month for IBD is relatively new. And there's not a lot of awareness, but it is so common and so many people from all stripes and all types of jobs are affected by it. And they don't have a resource when they have to go into that hospital and they're told, hey, everything's going to be fine. And then it's not. The story I want to tell is that there is support. There is a lot of people that suffer from this and are living good, productive lives. But it's like you have to earn your stripes. You have to pay your dues with Crohn's. Some people I know, they get off pretty easy. They have it pretty easy, but I'd say those are the exception and not the rule.
I would say so too.
Most people somewhere in their IBD journey, there's some adversity, and you earn your stripes and you pay your dues and you learn. but eventually there's good outcomes every now and then. And, I know that I'll probably be back in the hospital in 8 to 10 years and have another bowel resection. That'll happen indefinitely. But I know that, okay, you can have a good experience too. And for me, I was due to have a good one. And anxiety and depression and PTSD aside, I knew somewhere in my body, I knew I was going to have a good one here. And now I know, I can get multiple years of symptom-free good living. And I'm going to spend that time, besides enjoying it with my kids and advancing my career. I manage health and safety at a corporate level in the oil and gas industry. That's what I've done for almost 2 decades. And I love my work, and at work we're expanding to an international capacity. Within 2-3 years, I'm probably going to be spending some time in the Middle East and in South America. I'm going to do some things that I haven't done before, and I'm going to live life. But I want to advocate. I'm going to spend my time advocating. I was talking to a nice young lady there a week ago who asked me to write a chapter for a book on IBD and Crohn's disease.
Awesome.
My LinkedIn, I was really taken back actually by my LinkedIn posts. 130,000 views, 160, 170 comments, 30 some shares, and 1,300 reactions. It blew me away. And but it got some attention and I got some notice. And I'm going to be doing some things with the Canadian Society for Crohn's and Colitis here in Canada.
That's
stuff
great.
with a gutsy walk. And I'm going to talk about it as much as possible, because if I was to walk down the street in my neighborhood, I can guarantee that someone in some house suffers with some form of IBD. And I would never want to, and this is what some people don't understand. We're not trying to take away from cancer. We're not trying to take away from multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease. We just want some attention on a disease that affects a lot of people, and it affects not just their intestinal and geotract. It affects your life. It affects how you live your life. It affects your relationships. For example, I can't get on an airplane if I'm sitting on a window seat. I need to be in the aisle, and I need to know I can hit that bathroom. I've never used the bathroom on an airplane, but psychologically, I need to know that I can. I can't drive as a passenger unless it's my wife. There's times when I go out into the field and I'm going with a coworker, I have to take my own vehicle, my own truck, because I need to be able to pull over if I need to. I usually don't, but I need to know that I can.
Right.
And, so even though I'm feeling good and everything's going to be great, it still changes the way you live your life and how you approach things. And you need support, because we're not all supermen or superwomen. We're not all as tough as we think we are and tell ourselves that we are. There's a lot of denial that comes with this. And I think the more advocation and the more attention it gets, the more people talk about it and their experiences, the less that, the more that stigma is going to be released. And people that they'll realize that it's okay. It's okay to accept that there's a mental health part to this. And it's okay to feel anxiety when you're on an airplane. And it's okay to be able to tell your coworkers, look, I go to that bathroom 20 times a day. I can't help it. I can't control it, but I have to. And, that's hard when you're in a workplace and you have a shared bathroom and you got to use that bathroom 20 times. And, but, I do I do my best in that regards. But I think the more attention, the more people know about it, the more they're willing to talk about it, and the more they'll be able to get support for it.
100% agree. And so, it's been amazing talking to you, Darren, and this, just listening to your story today, man. Like, I'm just beyond grateful. Yeah, I mean, your journey. I mean, I used to smoke too, for a while, and cigarettes and stuff. Like, the stuff that you've been through, I relate to and empathize with more than you probably ever know.
Which is good, that it makes me, as weird as this might sound, it makes me feel better knowing that there's others that had that same experience, because I think when you're in it, you feel all alone and you feel like you're the only person on earth that's going through it. And knowing that there's other people that have gone through that same thing is huge. But I would love to do more of this with you, Jordan.
Me too, man. Like, I
absolutely.
feel like, there's more conversations to be had,
Oh, yes.
And so,
Oh, yes.
I look forward to it. Like, is this, it's fascinating listening to, how you think, you're going through this journey by yourself, the mental health, complex PTSD, like depression, like anxiety, like, just, ileum being gone, constant diarrhea, going to the bathroom all the time, constantly being sick, putting on a brave face, going to work every day, corporate America. I know, man. I know.
Yeah.
And so.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Right?
Doing it.
Keep trucking. Absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, I have a picture of me when I was at my lowest weight. I was very thin, and I'll send some of these pictures to you, Jordan. Okay. And I was wearing a blue long sleeve shirt and a hat and a vest, and it hung on me, and my face was very gate. It was very thin. I didn't look good. And then in 2018, I started a workout regimen. I put on a lot of weight. I was working out every day. I put on some really good muscle mass. And I put the same shirt on, the same hat, the same vest. And I took a picture. I put them side by side. And I filled that shirt out. My hat barely fit. And my vest was tight. And I just looked like $1,000,000 in my eyes. And so I'm looking forward to getting healed from this surgery, and then working out and putting on weight, and then you feel so good. And man, Crohn's got nothing. Crohn's has nothing on me, Jordan.
Facts, exactly. We overcome, right?
We do.
And so, so with that, I want you to check out my website. So the crohnsveteran.com. Go to the Crohn's Veteran store. Take it. I know you're in Canada, so get a hoodie. It's on me. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's funny. It's funny that you say that. You earned your stripes, because if you go to my website, that's the first thing you see is that you've earned your IBD stripes.
Yeah.
So you definitely earned yours, man. I really appreciate your time. Real quick. If people want to reach out to you, support you, or just, drop you a line, to say hi, how can they do that?
You know what? LinkedIn is a great way. Or they can just shoot me an email. And my email address is the best one to use for me is Darren, DARREN, at ripmonkey.tech. And it's on my LinkedIn profile. Monkey has no E in it, but that's my side hustle, my website development company there that I do on the side. But just look me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. I love to talk about it. I'm a talker. And
let's talk about website design, because I'm always looking to improve here. So
absolutely,
that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Well, and to everybody listening out there, if you found value, if you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, support, share,
absolutely.
All that stuff. This show is a labor of love. I do this just to raise awareness, to help people. and uplift the IBD community worldwide. And so, so please, if you're listening to my show, help me by sharing Darren's story to us, to the far reaches of the globe. And so,
Absolutely. More shares, the better.
Definitely. And so, again, if you want to, if you're interested in an interview on my show, you can reach me at jordan@crohnsveteran.com. My website is www.crohnsveteran.com. You can check out the store, crohnsveteranstore.com. They're very creative.
That's where I'm going right now, buddy.
Right, and then we've got a YouTube channel. You can hear the podcast on, of course, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all that kind of fun stuff. Please support us. Much respect, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you, Jordan. You're doing an absolutely wonderful thing, and I look forward to helping you any way I can, brother.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It means a lot, Darren. And